Just that, they make contact. They touch once, twice, 3 times.
Oh, trouble! Oh, no, Rocky into the wall. Big crash front straightaway. Huge crash coming into the tri-oval. No, Rocky up and into the air.
They're beating and banging. Burn on the bottom. Cosman up top.
I think. No! Breyer by 1/1000th of a second. Joseph, no! At the line, Thunhorse pulls the win out at the stripe.
Oh, he saves it. What's going to happen here?
Here comes the canvas. Get your foot in. He got it. He's got it. He's got it.
This is going to win.
Of all the off-road short course tracks in America, perhaps the most famous is Crandon International Raceway. So making an easy decision, the organizers of this series have elected to kick things off at this classic venue. But it won't be the full version, so it's turned into something of a bull ring. Let's see if the drivers will have to get their elbows out as we get ready to watch round 1 of the 2022 iRacing Regional Short Course Series live on FDF.GG. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and joining me in the booth tonight is Ian Fisher with our producer Zach Johnson behind the scenes. Ian, this is going to be an interesting one, no doubt. Without the extra portion on the track and with the number of drivers that we have here today, I think it's going to be a packed house.
Well, they always say familiarity brings contempt, Joe, and I think that rings true, especially here on the short course at Crandon. These drivers aren't going to have much room to navigate with, and with such a large field like we have tonight, you got to imagine that all these guys are going to be battling for all the room on the racetrack they could possibly find. So going to see some good old-fashioned short course racing here. We're going to see some beating and banging, and one driver's going to come away at the end of the night with the trophy in victory lane.
Yeah, who is going to be that lucky person here today? They'll have to work hard for it, that's for sure. They're in the remainders of practice at the moment. They'll head off into a solo qualifying session where they'll have 4 laps to work their way through there. But how important is that qualifying session going to be? We're lacking a few corners that tend to offer overtaking opportunities.
Absolutely. It's always hard to pass, especially with these off-road trucks. You're usually going to have to get a bumper out or hope the driver in front of you makes a mistake. So especially right now with all these drivers warming up in practice, you got to imagine that they've run a few qualifying laps, Joe, trying to get the best line they possibly can, put themselves up there on the leaderboard to start these races. And you don't have to worry so much about battling. You kind of just run your line and let it play out behind you.
Indeed. We'll go over the format in a little bit of what is entailed, because this is your typical heat format that we've got in short course off-road racing. But as we watch these Pro 4 trucks whip their way around the various banked corners here at Crandon, a minute and a half left. Hopefully, you've got all the practice in that you need, because you can maybe get in 1 or 2 more laps before you're sent over to that qualifying session. Also, ever a talking point when you're dealing with dirt racing is the evolving of the track, the way it constantly changes. We can already see quite a bit of a cushion starting to form, it looks like, Ian.
Of course, and you always have these drivers looking for what's called the blue groove, and that's where you start to get rubber worn into this track, and that's where you start to find the faster lap times as the track continues to wear in. And you can kind of see it now as you watch this onboard view. There's a lot of that track that's worn in, and it's kind of a lighter color of dirt, but you see some of these drivers starting to move up there into that darker dirt, trying to find some speed up there. It's all about managing your lines, especially on a dynamic surface like dirt.
No doubt. So just a little bit more time, then we'll be on our way for this first race in the regional series. Should be a fun one, no doubt, as we've got a couple to get through before we're done. 5 events until we get to October. So we'll have a little bit of a wait before we get to the next one in September when we head off to Wild West, but we'll certainly have plenty of fun to keep us entertained in the meantime, circulating through the various tracks that are on offer here on iRacing. A lot of jumps at this circuit, so you can see these trucks get plenty airborne throughout. Going to be a lot of concern about managing them while in the air, and definitely don't want to make contact with one another while you are flying. So as they head on over to that qualifying session, let's see who is going to start off with a bang here. It seemed like last time out, Connor Berry really was the man to beat, Ian. So, I mean, is there anybody else that you've got your eyes on here?
There's a few names that kind of catch your eye as you're looking through this field, and all of these drivers, of course, Joe, are very talented. And I think a little bit of the popularity that we're seeing in the series and why we're seeing such a large driver count is recently iRacing, as you know, wrapped up the Pro 4 World Championship, had a great turnout and a great viewership. And I think that's bringing a lot of the drivers over here to the regional series. Some of these guys trying to get their feet wet maybe in off-road racing. But you asked a few names that stand out to me. Nathan Metoxen in the 19 truck, an experienced dirt road racer that's trying to make a name for himself. Also, another name that comes to mind is Scott Kerr in the 84 truck as well. And also Nathan Ramsey in the 29 truck. Some of these guys have been around for a long time in the off-road series, really cutting their teeth. And they're trying to find this season as really a stepping point to make that next step in their off-road career, Joe.
Yeah, and I love that they have this opportunity. I have to imagine it's a lot harder to try and get out there and get time behind the wheel in this style of racing. Not as common over here in the States, but certainly has its ardent fans. But we're just seeing a few of them now start their first flying lap around here. Remember that finish line just after Calamity Corner, the 4th hairpin of the circuit. It's pretty much all hairpins except for turn 2, which is that long sweeper. So I'm guessing your chops in the slower corner is going to be critical today here, Ian.
Absolutely, yeah. It's really, I mean, any kind of short course racing is all about managing your momentum, but especially here at the Crandon short course. Kind of mentioned at the top of the broadcast, Joe, one of those places that when you speak with the upper echelon of racing tracks, such as the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the Daytona International Speedway, Crandon definitely comes to mind for these short track racers. So something they're familiar with, but really the important thing here is setting a consistent lap time and trying to get yourself up at the top of the leaderboard early. And the short track, bumping and banging, we kind of mentioned it, it's going to be really hard to get track position. So you want to start up at the top of the leaderboard and try to work your way from there. It's definitely much easier going into the rest of the night, Joe.
Indeed, and we've got Timothy Messimer certainly at the top by about 0.2 of a second, considering it's only 45-second laps. That's a pretty good gap to the next car back, Austin Bolson. James Burke is within 0.003 of those first two. Remember, we are doing heats, so those top 3 will not necessarily be racing together. And in those heats, it is only going to be 4 in each that advances to the feature. And Leighton Kramer just put a good one in. He jumps up into second.
Yeah, really good lap there. Only puts himself 0.3 off the lead. And maybe you're watching at home for the first time, Joe, and you're wondering, it's what makes the difference between all of these lap times between these drivers. You're looking at this and you're seeing 0.1 of a second difference from first all the way down the 14th position. It's really important with these off-road trucks to manage your angles into the corners here as we watch TJ Staver, on his qualifying run. Really important to manage your runs into the corners and then also manage your throttle coming out of the corner as well. A lot of drivers, especially when they're starting driving these off-road trucks, thinks it's all about throwing it around and driving sideways. You really don't want to do that, Joe. You want to keep the truck as straight as you possibly can and not spin those tires, especially coming off those corners if you want these fast lap times here at Crandon.
That probably explains why I've never been fast, because I just enjoy chucking them around. But it looks like we just about have most of the laps in since they go so quickly. They've been given 10 minutes to try and set a time, and they could wait if they wanted to, but it really doesn't change much out here since they've all got the track to themselves. And as we continue to watch the 72 cycle his way around, where has he actually put himself out on track at this point? I think that is, lost track of him there. That's Trevor, who is currently sitting in the 23rd position. So Trevor Teal's got a lot of work to do. He's going to be towards the back of the field once we get rolling. Still about half of the time left. We'll see if everybody finishes up early, and if we get to kick things off a little bit prematurely here.
And you asked me a little bit earlier, Joe, some drivers that you should watch out for at home going into this iRacing short course regional series. Trevor Teal, even though he's kind of struggling in qualifying right now, I think is another driver to watch for as well. He's another driver that really grew up and cut his teeth on this dirt road racing, is a little bit more familiar with rallycross, I would say, and has really just started to commit full time to these trucks. He was a driver in the 2022 iRacing Pro 4 Short Course All-Star Series, so he's got a little bit of experience up there at the higher levels of racing, and coming down to the regional series here, really trying to dominate for this season.
Yeah, he bumped himself up to 16th that last lap by. Let's see if he can go quicker than that. 46.037. Doesn't look fast on my timing screen, and yeah, that one got deleted, so he must have clipped the wall somewhere, and in fact, he's going to pull off as he considers his qualifying done, even though he had one more if he so desired. The 96 out there as well. Still trying to put a time in. That's Rory Folsom in that machine. He's coming around gravel pit right now towards the last corner, that right-hander, Calamity Corner. And this is one of the tightest on the track as well. So this could lead to some interesting battles across the finish line, which you'll see. It's this jump under the banner as he leaps across. His second lap is a 46.3. That's way slower than his first lap.
And it's something you'll find here as well on the dirt road service here on iRacing is we kind of see an onboard shot here. We can see the driver behind the cockpit working away there at the wheel, and how much you actually have to put wheel into these off-road trucks to kind of get them to what you want to do. You're not necessarily fighting them so much, Joe, but you really are kind of muscling them around this track and really putting a lot of wheel inputs in, and you have to be smooth with them as well. But another important thing too is to try to minimize your wheel spin off the jumps. You want to hit the jump and hit the ground with all four wheels and be able to drive away efficiently, and that's something that we're seeing this driver do very well right now.
Latest lap, though, did get deleted. They cannot touch the walls around here, and he must have gone a little bit far to the side and just clipped one, unfortunately. So he gets one last chance to try and improve on this 13th place. Folsom not showing as particularly quick right now, although he is hovering at about his best time. Let's see if he can get it into the negatives, and yes, he is. He's starting to go a little quicker. Oh, but he sends it in too deep into gravel pit, and in fact, he turns it on its side, so that is lap done.
Yeah, flipping on your side is definitely not conducive to fast lap times, Joe, but you saw there that line through the gravel pit, different lines that drivers will take through these corners to try to make speed there. You can do a few different ways through there. You can really slow down and try to hug the apex and get a good drive off, or you can drive in really aggressively and try to slide your truck in there. See, a lot of the drivers do that tonight when we start to get into racing action and not just qualifying. You'll see what we call the slide job here on dirt road racing. See a lot of guys drive really hard into the corner, try to slide up in front of their opponent and forcing them to check up and try to get the spot that way. So keep an eye out for that, especially tonight, Joe.
This is Corey Olson on screen. He's finished his qualifying, but he's just he's allowed to get practice laps in if he so desires. As long as he doesn't hop out of the car, he can keep going as long as he wants up until that 10-minute counter up on your left-hand side of the screen counts down to 0. Then they're going to be heading off into the heats. I guess this is a good a time as any to give us a look at that schedule that we have coming up here, the 5 races that I mentioned a little bit earlier. with Crandon short course up first. Then we've got Wild West, as I mentioned, on September 12th. Bark River, one of my favorites personally here on iRacing, on September 19th. Wild Horse will be on the 26th. And then we'll come back to finish where we began at Crandon on October 3rd. But it will be the full circuit for that one. All right, so I think that may have been it. I don't see any other cars that are out on track, and they are counting it down, so it looks like they will allow that to finish out instead of advancing the session here. This gives us a chance to catch our breath, certainly, before we go to the first race. What are you anticipating here in the first one? A lot of drivers without maybe as much familiarity around each other, some maybe more than others, Ian, so what do you think is going to happen?
I think you hit the nail on the head there, Joe. There's going to be a lot of drivers that are new to this iRacing regional short course series, and I think they're going to try to figure out where they kind of sit when other trucks are on the track right now. Some of the more experienced drivers, especially, Messimer, Kramer, Bolson, Burke, looking down the top four guys towards the front of the pack, especially in qualifying. You could probably see them get out to an early lead, but the rest of the drivers, you're going to have to kind of figure out where they stand here, especially on this Crandon short circuit, and kind of go from there and figure out how the rest of the night's going to go.
Absolutely. And looks like they are switching over now to the first heat of the day. So as that populates, I think we're ready to head through the grid. And it's going to be a tough one in these heats because only 4 are going to be advancing to the feature. Messimer is going to be on the pole. Austin Bolson in second with Robert Henderson, P3. You've got Scott Kerr in fourth, followed by Chaden Minder in the 5th position. Corey Skiles starts from 6. First half of the field is going to be rounded out by Rory Folsom here, Ian.
And after that, we got the 66 truck of Williams Sites rounding out your 4th row. Trevor Teal in the 72 truck is going to start on the inside of row 5 with Nathan Metoxen in the 19. 2 is outside. Row 6 shows us Brian Warner in the 570 truck, and Lorenzo Minacci making his first ever iRacing start, actually, Joe, if you can believe that or not. He finds himself on the outside of row 6. Nathan Ramsey, the Australian in the 29 truck, is going to start row number 7. And believe it or not, that disappeared before I could lead the final driver. So I do apologize for that. But he's out there as well looking for a good race in Heat 1, Joe.
Yeah, Nicholas Queen going to wrap things up of our 14. 6 laps for this first race as they're waiting for the green. And it is the Land Rush style start here at Crandon, as they traditionally do. Yes, they are not going to be racing on this side of the course, but once they head on over to the short course, they'll just keep circulating around across the cutoff that we saw a little bit earlier. Real quick, here is the format for this evening that we'll be running. There are going to be 4 heats maximum. Looks like actually I see 2 of them that we will be running tonight, so 2 very large fields. And then from there, we'll have a last chance qualifier heading into the feature, but the last chance qualifier is your last opportunity to make it in. So as the engines start to rev, the lights are up here for round 1, and the green flag is out of the Land Rush. It does look like the inside line just a little bit better. One of those white trucks in the middle is quite quick. A little bit of a catch in the back as some drivers made some contact with one another. That looks like Bonacci involved in that one. Oh, and one truck actually hitting into the tires and going for a roll.
Yeah, we got a few trucks towards the back of the pack. You see the one flipping up there, but back towards the front of the field here. Timothy Messimer has the early lead, but Austin Bullison in the 25 truck, and it looks like the 19 truck, they're giving him a run for his money. You'll see the 19 run to the inside here, try to get the run off the corner here, Joe, and see what he can do for the rest of this heat race.
That was Robert Henderson that's had a wild ride there coming out of the first sweeper, but a little bit of argy-bargy down into Calamity Corner. It seems as though Metoxen is going to have to get that lead back because Messimer was challenging him across the finish line. He tries to cut back once again. Another car over on his lid. That's Brian Warner. He comes to a halt and is unable to continue on as he has to take a tow, but still side by side for the lead.
side by side, bore the lead right now. You have Metoxin and Mesmer battling it out farther down the fact. Things have kind of started to string out a little bit, Joe. You see these two go side by side in the gravel pit here, really just trying to find a line. You'll see the inside here kind of gets the run off the corner early, but then that outside line really has more momentum here. They'll dive into the final corner here, back to the start finish line, and they'll bump and bang a little bit on each other as well.
Yep, they certainly did. Metoxin making contact with Minder. Metoxin clouded the wall as well, coming around through turn 2, but it looks like the truck is okay. Meanwhile, it is Messimer who leads. It looks like Minder's going to be retaining 3rd position, being chased by Bolson there in 4th as they fly down to gravel pit once again.
And you saw one of the strategies there by Metoxin that you could kind of play with these off-road trucks is he kind of parked that corner there kind of hard on Minder, and it really forced Minder to check up and give away a lot of his momentum here. As you can see, Minder now loses another spot to the 25 of Bolison as they dive back into Calamity Corner here to finish lap number 2.
Yep, starting lap 3 now. Remember, these are very short. They're only halfway through. So as they come around turn 1, back on the main course, Messimer starting to pull a little bit of a gap as Metoxin has to look in the mirrors. Bolson is starting to encroach upon that number 19 up through the wide sweeper, and it does look like Metoxin loves to go way wide through that corner.
Yeah, Metoxin really loves to keep the momentum up right now, and this is one of your best battles on the track here is between Metoxin and Bolison in the 25 truck. You see that slide job maneuver the 25 there just threw on the 19 of Metoxin. He's going to make it work, though, but was able to slide it a little bit too wide, and now Metoxin able to take the position back. He's going to try to go to the door here. Right now, your transfer positions are Messimer, Metoxin, Bolison, and Minder, but right now you have Kerr and Skiles really just battling for that spot there behind him, trying to get away from each other so they can challenge for that final transfer spot, Joe.
3 wide through turn 1 briefly. Bolson still going for it. He's been leaning on Metoxin quite a bit and actually gave him a shove that time, almost sending him into the wall. Minder can't quite find an opening amongst the two of them. With all that battling, you'd think there should be a good chance to try and sneak through.
Yeah, there really should, and you kind of see what's happening here, Joe, is we're seeing the complexity in lines and the different lines that trucks are taking. You're really seeing Bolison there in the 25. Every time they head into the gravel pit, he's driving it in there really hard, trying to slide in front of the other trucks, and he was able to make it work on that lap there, but he's going to have to hold off Metoxin and Minder if he wants to hang on to that second spot.
Already to lap 5 now on another little bump, but this time it's Metoxin leaning on Bolson, who's finally managed to get through. Behind him, Minder wants to try and do the same thing. Can't get to the side of that number 19 machine. The 25 starting to put a few car lengths between himself and Nathan. Nathan turns in early as Minder swings it in wide, almost getting underneath Bolson. Metoxin has to check up so as not to run into the side of that red truck.
Yeah, Metoxin tried to repay the favor on Bolison there, tried to use his move and get in front of him, and now you can see here it's forcing him wide, and it might be forcing him out of a transfer spot here, Joe, if he continues to battle with the 415 of Minder. The 415 gets loose up on his front wheels there. That's going to allow the 84 of Scott Kerr to slide into the transfer spot.
Indeed. I think he got a little help, though, from Metoxin in that process. Not sure if that's going to raise the ire of the stewards here. Behind them, a huge wreck. It looks like Roy Folsom just flipped on his lid, taking the inside of 2 a little too tight. But up at the front of it all, Messimer is coming around to take the victory in the first heat of the season. The 033, once he had the lead clear, could not be caught and will win today at Crandon.
The final battle here is going to be between these final 2 positions for the transfer spot. They're going to beep and bang Dutch doors across, and it's going to be Scott Kerr, who barely misses out, it looks like, over Minder for that final transfer position. You saw the battle to the start-finish line, and sometimes that's all the difference it takes between going to the future and having the fight out of the LCQ, Joe.
Yeah, there you can see the results of the previous one. And already they're gritting up for that second heat here today. It's going to be Leighton Kramer who is going to be starting on the pole of the second heat. Remember, only 2 that we have today. James Burke is going to be starting from second position. Ryan Miller, P3. Corey Boudinot will start from the 4th spot as Cameron Magashik will start from 5th. After that, you've got Dylan Aylor in 6th. Rounding out the first half, it's going to be Austin Coates.
And in 8th place, you have the 41 truck of Jason Bryant. The 51 of Mark Spittelmeister starts in row 5 on the inside, and the 02 truck of Logan Gill on the outside out of the Midwest region. In row number 6, we may not have a row number 6. And keep in mind, if you're watching along at home, we're reading this out by row. But all these trucks are starting in a row on a land rush start. You got Sawyer Tinkner, Dennis Crosby, Braden Ward, and then Corey Olson finishing out the rest of your grid. So 2 wide here on the, 2 deep on the land rush start. Only 4 trucks on the second row, though, Joe.
All right, they should be good to go here. And we anxiously await for the, well, you know what? They should get the virtual cowboy out here for this. I'm not sure if iRacing has tried to do that or not, but looks like they're just about ready as Connor Berry, our race steward, is making sure everybody knows they need to be out there. And it does look like we have all 14 ready and raring. And yes, they are going to start the start sequence here. The engines start to rev. The lights are up. Oh, we got a jump start in the middle, trying to see who that was that came across the line a little bit too quick. And hard to pick them out here with all the trucks filing down to the bottom. As they hit the first corner, things can really come down to a bit of a siphon here. Will they all make it out the other side? Oh, somebody gets shoved off into the wall hard. I think that's Logan Gill.
Yeah, it was Logan Gill that got shoved off, and then it was the 51 truck, I believe, of Ryan Miller that was the jump start there on the start there, Joe. I will say we have a few trucks that kind of have gotten the worst of the land rush start, but pretty far so far here through 2 heats. Pretty clean through those land rush starts, I will say, for these drivers, Joe.
Braden Ward looked like he got turned around as well and all of that. And I thought I heard something from the stewards there, but didn't quite make out what he said. Austin Coates gets turned around. He's taken a lot of time to well, he's taking time to actually find the course. It looks like he was really way off into the weeds there. Up at the front, it is going to be my time and scoring is going a little wonky here as trying to find our leader. It looks like Leighton Kramer currently up at the front in the 18. James Burke is trailing him. Magashik is following, but isn't quite as close to the back of those top 2.
Yeah, isn't quite close to the back of the top 2 and is actually getting a little bit of doors right now from the 21 truck of Sawyer Tinker there. And he's going to be right now the truck that sits in your 4th and final transfer position. Corey Benoit in the 34 is going to be the first truck outside looking in. But right now the top 4 trucks have made a little bit of a gap from that 5th truck. It's 1st and 2nd, then 3rd and 4th, and a little bit more of a gap back to 5th place right now, Joe.
Yeah, despite this battle for the lead here between Kramer and Burke, we can't lose sight of the fact that it is 4th is the important position. If you're in 5th, you really need to try and push up to that car ahead of you. Right now, that's Corey Boudinot, who is trying to chase on Tinker. And another move down for the lead as the 7 gives a little bit of a hello to Kramer, but doesn't push him too hard.
Yeah, and you see up here at the front, Leighton and Kramer, Leighton, Kramer, and James Burke, even though they're up at the front here and they're in a transfer position, they're still battling each other hard for this win, Joe. It means a lot, not only for bragging rights, but also if you finish ahead of your competitor in a heat race or in an LCQ, that also puts you in a better starting position for the grid, or if you're in an unfortunate enough position to fall from the LCQ from a heat, puts you in a better position for the LCQ. So even if you're finding yourself on the outside of one of these transfer positions, your battles are still important.
Yeah, that's a good point. So Burke, who is still the one trying to take that lead away, has temporarily been in the lead this time. He uses a slide job and nudges Kramer out. He is now firmly in the top spot.
Yeah, that was perfectly executed, and you'll see a little bit of that here, especially in iRacing short course racing. Here is doors are usually pretty acceptable, Joe. You can't just go out there and straight hook a guy in the right rear and spin him out, but if you let a driver get to your door and they push you out of the way, that's more your fault than theirs usually.
And it seems like Burke took great advantage of that one. Still getting quite a bit of battling towards the back, but it seems like Kramer doesn't want us a chance to be able to go focus on that as he's still hot on the heels of the 7.
Yeah, hot on the heels of the 7. The battle back in third and fourth with Megeshik and Tinkner here has kind of been a stranger to these front runners here at the top 2, and then Boudinot back there in the 5th position is kind of fallen away from this top 4th pack. Really gonna have to try to adjust his line a little bit or find some speed in that truck if he hopes to make it through here in the first heat, or sorry, in the second heat, Joe.
On the penultimate lap now, Boudinot is the odd man out in that number 34, needing to catch up to Sawyer's 0-2-1. He will be sent off to the LCQ to try and make it into the feature, though, as we'll have 8 cars that already are transferring, but they will be adding a few more once we get over to that last chance qualifier race. We got the white flag all ready to go in Barney's hands, and it's one more time around this 45-second short course. Can it be a victory here for Burke despite not starting on the pole?
Right now, it looks like his race to lose, and you saw the doors that were going on between Burke and Kramer, and you might see one more of these before this race is over, Joe, especially if Kramer gets himself in a position where he can make that move on Burke. But really, you got to make that move, and then you got to get away, because if you make that move to door another driver, Joe, you got to expect that it's going to come back to you if they can catch you again.
What goes around comes around. Boudinot unfortunately can't come around to the side of Tinker. He's been just tantalizingly close, but never close enough to try and execute something. A little bit of a slide from Kramer to see if he could get up to Burke, but nothing doing there. Just one more turn to go for James Burke as he pulls it around Calamity Corner. And that is a win for the number 7 in the second heat of the night in the iRacing Regional Short Course Series. Kramer finishes second, Megeshik will be third, and Tinker is your last to advance in fourth.
And if you're Boudinot in the 34 truck, you know you're disappointed, Joe, that you didn't make it through the heat, but you showed really good speed in that heat. You got to think he's really confident heading into the LCQ.
There you see the rest of the finishing order for this one. Bryant finishing in 6th, Spittelmeister in P7. Olsen finishes 8th today with Crosby and Coates rounding out your top 10. Then meanwhile, it is Logan Gill, Ryan Miller, Braden Ward, and Dylan Aylor that rounds it out. Aylor didn't even get to finish a lap, it looks like, on that one. We've got our LCQ, and I believe, we do have 2 LCQs, it looks like, and only 5 of these drivers, so half of them will make it over to the feature. So Scott Kerr will be on the pole. Corey Skiles will be in second. Trevor Teal starts P3. William Stites will start from 4th. Nicholas Queen, P5. Lorenzo Bonacci will be in 6th. Robert Henderson in the 7th spot. Nathan Ramsey will be P8. And the last of them, Roy Folson in 9th and Brian Warner in 10th. If you don't make it into those top 5 here, Ian, it's time for an early shower.
Yeah, you unfortunately have to go home for the night if you don't make it in the top 5, but a real opportunity here if you're one of the drivers in the top 5. This land rush start, everybody starts on equal footing. You really just got to beat everybody down in the turn 1. You're going to have a good race, Joe.
Ultimately, that means 18 will be in the feature, and that's out of 28 starters. So 10 drivers total will not be able to continue on after our last chance qualifiers tonight. Looks like they have been given the warning that they are about to go. So we should hear the engines start to rev here pretty soon. All right. as they've been given the signal. The engines now rise in harmony, and the green flag is out. Scott Kerr on that pole on the inside, not quite as quick. Some drivers nudging one another in the back, barely holding on. And now Kerr just launches up ahead, but he's going to be incredibly shallow into the corner. He still retains the lead. 4 wide behind them as they try to hold on, but nope. We've got at least one going around. Bonacci gets tipped up on his side.
Yeah, but Nachi tips around on his side, and we have one other truck. Can't really see right now. That's the 570 truck, it looks like. And Brian Warner caught up in that land rush calamity. But so far, whole shot winner right now. Scott Kerr looking to make the best out of this LCQ. He's got Trevor Teal behind him and Corey Skiles battling. William Seitz and Nathan Queen round out your transfer positions right now. But the field is still very tight, Joe. This is anyone's race heading into the first lap here.
Yeah, wonderfully managed there by the 84. Didn't look all that fast off the line, but it was just the fact that it seemed like nobody was able to be as good in the second phase of that start. And away he went. So Trevor Teal chasing in second, but he's got a lot of company in his rear view mirrors. Rory Folsom is looking over his shoulder and Maybe trying to get higher, as you said. Starting position important, but he doesn't want to prematurely end his night, so I'm sure he's not going to make a risky move here, knowing that all it takes is 2 losses of positions and he's out.
It's always a delicate balancing act that you play, especially if you're in a position like Queen, Skiles, or Henderson right now, and you know that you're possibly faster than the truck in front of you, because you want to make that position up, Joe, especially if you're Henderson in the 27 truck sitting in 6th position now, 1 position outside of that transfer spot, because you got to make a move. You only have 2 more laps at this point, and you got to go now. But you do have to be careful as well. You don't want to end your night on a silly decision trying to make a risky move.
Certainly. Well, things are not all that risky for the 84, who continues to lead comfortably ahead, but you can see that blue and white 011 of Skiles, who is the last one to be able to advance, is trying to get himself a little bit more comfortable. Nicholas Queen to his outside as they enter into Calamity Corner is going to swing very, very wide, but actually get a much better launch off the corner and deny him the pass.
And you'll see that sometimes, the variance in lines that you can play, Joe. You can choose for a faster entry or a faster drive off the corner. And we saw the difference there that it made for Queen in the 48 truck. Was able to really get a really good drive off the corner there, clear Skiles for that position, and make his possible trip to the main race just a little bit more comfortable for now.
That move, though, certainly brought Henderson and Stites up close to the back of them in the 027 and the 66. He needs him to keep making those failed attempts, because that should open the door.
And you really got to be careful with that, too. If you're a driver that's trying to attack and you make one of those moves and it doesn't really pay out for the position, you do find yourself under attack, as we see these drivers right now, almost a 4-way battle for this final transfer spot. That's Queen, Skiles, Henderson, and Styles that you see all there battling for this final spot. And you mentioned it, Joe, one's wrong move, and you see how close those trucks behind you battling for those transfer spots can get.
All right, so it's really about who is able to finish in 5th here, because Kerr has this under control up at the top, and 2nd and 3rd are battling a little bit, but nothing too hard back there. They're still trying to see if they can make some overtakes, but up at the front, Scott Kerr around Calamity Corner is going to win the last chance qualifier to be able to get into the feature. Teal follows them across in 2nd, Folsom 3rd, Queen is going to be 4th, and Skiles will, in fact, manage to finish 5th. Frustration for Stites and Henderson.
And especially heartbreaking for Henderson as well, because for a lot of that LCQ, he found himself in the transfer spot, and just at the last second there, Skiles was able to beat him out. So unfortunately, Henderson on back there, you see on our grid, are going to go home. But still a good run from all these drivers here today. We really appreciate him coming out. Really a great turnout for this first round of the iRacing Regional Series show.
Yeah, I know it's disappointing for them to not be able to get to the feature, but they're part of what makes this an exciting event. The more the merrier, in my opinion. But right now we are back to, once again, very few cars out there because it's only 10 starting in the second last chance qualifier. Corey Boudinot starting on the pole with Jason Bryant in second. Mark Spittelmeister will start from P3. Then it's going to be Corey Olson in the fourth position. Dennis Crosby starts from fifth. Austin Coate will be next in sixth spot. Logan Gill starts from P7. Then it's Ryan Miller in the eighth spot. Braden Ward will be ninth, and Dylan Aylor will be 10th of our drivers. Okay, let's see if they give them the go-ahead here soon. Should get a message from race control when they set the countdown to about 5 more seconds, and then we'll be on our way for this one. And still looking for that one here, as usually they come up pretty quickly. Here we go. Now they're giving the heads up on that. So just a slight delay to the start, but now we are raring to go. If you miss this one, you're not in the big show here today. The engines start to rev as we have just a few seconds left in our clock. Lights are up. Ooh, another jump start from one of our drivers, and now the green flag is out. I think that was our third in line. That was Mark Spittelmeister. In fact, that really hurt his start. He is way back there and might not be a factor for the advancing positions unless he sees a lot of trouble in front of him.
No, yeah, that really hurt his chances to make this future race pretty clean to the rest of the land rush start. Boudinot on that inside line, able to get a really good run. Something I noticed last LCQ as well was Scott Kerr was able to make that inside line work. Even though he got the bad start, Joe, there's a lot less bumps there on the inside line there. So you see a lot of the other trucks. Oh, as we got trouble there farther back in the pack.
Austin Coates gets turned around completely, has to do a 360 and get on his way once again. Oh, up at the front, some strange goings on. Bryant is now your new leader. Miller is in second, and it looks like Olson has been shot back to fourth. Brendan Ward is now in third. What happened to Boudinot? I'm trying to find him.
Boudinot got shot back to fifth?
He must have had some sort of spin or roll or something.
They were coming over the jump, heading into Calamity, and they both got together, actually, and it sent him pretty much all the way back there, Joe. But, yeah, he's going to have to fight out of fifth place now.
Yeah, that's Bryant that made the contact with him. I think he tried a slide job and unfortunately miscalculated, just basically elbowed him out of the way. But it does give Bryant the lead currently, and they are already halfway through this race. Miller chasing him now from second place. Ward in third. Olson is trying to take fourth away from Boudinot, but Boudinot's not having anything of it.
Yeah, you got to think Boudinot's disappointed leading this race early and now finds himself in fourth place, but he's got to stay composed. He's still in that transfer spot, and at the front of the pack here, we see the 41 of Jason Bryant trying to hold off the 51 of Ryan Miller right now, but Ryan Miller is all over the back bumper as they head down this straightaway.
So Boudinot at least in the advancing positions with a slight buffer in the form of Olson behind him. So that's going to be a slight consolation in this if he can just keep up the pace from here. Battle for the lead, though. Bryant sees Miller to his left-hand side after a great cutback. And they are on lap 2 here. So this should be the halfway mark officially, actually, here as they cross the line. Starting lap 3 of the event. Miller still not able to fully get past, but liking to really cut down to the very bottom of these corners.
And it seems like anytime Miller gets a run, Joe, he's able to get to the side of Bryant, but he's not able to complete the pass. And that's something that's really important, too, in short course racing as well. You can't really waste your time with your passes. You got to make them in a single turn or a single straightaway. You can't let these battles kind of go on for laps at a time because you see what's happening here. The rest of the field is starting to catch up to our 2 leaders.
Absolutely. Still watching in the background. It seems as though Ward is eager to try and take advantage. White flag is out. Still another failed attempt from Ryan Miller. Unable to best the number 41, who swings a little bit wide, but then gets the nice launch off of turn 1, up and over the double leaps that take you into 2. A long sweeping left-hander with its own bits of rises and catching of air.
Yeah, and this is a really tough corner as you're coming across to as a driver because it's blind when you're coming up that hill, Joe, and then you head down this long jump into the gravel pit corner here. And you really got to get slowed up for this gravel pit corner, but you got to carry a lot of speed at the same time. And right now, I think that's the difference between Jason Bryant and Ryan Miller is Bryant's able to just carry a little bit more speed through those corners right now, Joe.
Bryant's going to take the win. Miller second. Braden Ward is going to wind up in third. Boudinot does get himself into fourth. And Corey Olson looks to be the last advancing car of our crowd. So our finishing order for this one of those who didn't get through includes Logan Gill, the first one not to make it. That is always got to be frustrating for him. Dennis Crosby will be seventh. Coates, Spittelmeister, and Aylor, the last of them. Spittelmeister really didn't even get to start this one properly as he unfortunately jumped the start and then decided his penalty is going to make it a little too hard to try and advance through. Kind of gave that one up. Wow. Well, that was an interesting beginnings to this. We get a little bit of a warm-up, Ian, and then we'll head off to the feature, which is going to be a lot longer. How does that change things with so many more laps to try and to complete the race?
I think it changes the dynamic of this feature race completely, Joe, because you saw in the short lap count that we have, not only in our heat races, but in our LCQs, a lot of those moves had to be made very urgently. You really had to either put a door to your competitor or you really had to dive in there and make a risky move to take a position. And I think you'll still have to do that in the feature race when it comes down to the wire. But early in the race, I think you'll see a lot of these drivers kind of take it easy, settle into a position that they're comfortable with, and then try to really get into their line that they know how to race and try to run their fastest laps that they could possibly run, because you're going to have a lot more time to make these moves. You're going to have a lot more time to gain track position. But when the chips are down and it comes to 5 to go, 3 to go, and of course on the white flag, it doesn't matter after that anymore. You're going to see the gloves come off again, and you're going to see a lot of these high intensity moves, to say the least, Joe, coming to the checkered flag.
Well, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back after a bit of a mention from our sponsors. Don't leave. We've got more action here at Crandon. Welcome back to Crandon International Raceway. Glad to have you here with us. And of course, we want to mention that coverage for the iRacing Short Course Regional Series is brought to you by CBR Performance Products, Team Watson Racing Setups, MXS Productions, and Forged Dreams Media. Huge thank you to our sponsors for helping make this series possible. It's always hugely appreciated to make sure that there's some financial support to allow everybody to have as much fun as we can out here, and also for our viewers to have fun as well. Have to remember that this is not just for the drivers, but for the fans as well. Just about a minute left in the warm-up, then we'll head off into the feature. This is going to be an 18-lap race. Also a reminder that there is a mandatory caution that they are going to throw at the end of lap 8, just like they do in real-world short course racing. Competition caution, it'll bunch up the field. They'll also wave around those that have gone a lap down, if any have. Based on how much craziness we've seen in the first few races, Ian, I wouldn't doubt that we'll get a couple lap down cars.
Well, not only that, but just the tight confines of the Crandon short layout that we find ourselves at here tonight, Joe, I think kind of lends itself to lap traffic kind of being a factor, especially to these leaders as they start to tick away some of those laps. So not only are the lap down cars going to be happy to see the wave arounds, I think the leaders will be happy to see it as well, because it allows them to have the open air and clean racetrack again.
Absolutely. So we come down to 0. It's time to head over to the feature race. This is the big show and also going to be our biggest field of the evening with 18 cars out there at one time. So going to be mighty congested coming down into the first corner. Your starting grid for the feature race of the day is going to be Timothy Messimer on the pole. James Burke will start from second. Austin Bolson will be in third spot. Leighton Kramer will be P4. Then it's Nathan Metoxen in the 5th position. After that, Cameron Magashik will be in the 6th spot. Chaden Minder starts from P7. Then you've got Sawyer Tinker in the 8th spot. Scott Kerr starting from 9th. Rounding out the top 10, Ian, it is going to be Jason Bryant.
And in P11, you have the 72 truck of Trevor Teal. P12 finds Ryan Miller in the 51 truck, Rory Forsum in the 96. And P13, Braden Ward. P14 in his 531 truck, and then you have Nathan Queen in the 48 truck in 15th. 16th, Corey Boudinot. 17th, Corey Skiles. And rounding out our field is the 748 truck of Corey Olson. Joe, a great field we have here tonight. Almost 2 full rows of action here. It's going to be an exciting land rush start.
I must have missed the rule that if your name is Corey, you have to start from the back of the feature race here.
I didn't even notice that. Look at that, yeah.
All right. So looks like they should be giving the go-ahead pretty soon, because they've got everybody out on the track ready to go for the land rush start. We wait for the race stewards to give them the go-ahead. And there it is. They have given them their 5-second warning until the lights will start to come up. This is our first feature of the season. 5 events that we're holding here throughout this regional series. And as the engines now start to rev, the lights will come up. Everybody with their eyes up and their eyes forward. And the green flag is out as they start their way down towards that first turn. It looks like Messimer is doing pretty good up there in that 033. He might have the whole shot. They're 4 wide behind him coming into the sweeper.
Messimer may have the whole shot, but he doesn't have clearance of James Burke in the 7 truck here, and he's going to have the preferred line heading into this corner. Going to get just in front of Timothy Messimer. Messimer's going to get a bit of a bumper here, but the rest of the field is going to dive down the straightaway towards the gravel pit, Joe.
James Burke leading in that number 7. Messimer just behind him, but he gets nudged to the side. Kramer manages to find his way through. It is rush hour behind them. 3 and 4 wide. Oh, and a big wreck. I think that might have been Kramer. Yes, he's rolling over.
It's Kramer and also the 33 of Timothy Messimer. Kramer got into that post coming across the jump. It's so easy to do that, believe it or not, Joe. When you're in these off-road trucks, there's not much room to race, but that took out 2 of our front runners early here in the competition.
Oh, man, that has got to be gutting. So he's going to go multiple laps down, even if he can get back out there. He's going to hope that that mandatory caution helps him somewhat, but it's not looking like a good finish here today. Burke still leads. Bolson is sitting in second with Kerr in third behind him. They are nose to tail bumping one another through gravel pit, and that includes a lot of drivers. Looks like Metoxen, Queen, Minder, Boudinot, all in that mess.
Yeah, take the proverbial blanket and throw it over all these drivers from about fourth on back, Joe, because really it's hard to decide who's in what position right now. A little bit of a contact in the front of this pack between the two runners up there, but right now it's James Burke in the 7 truck who's kind of checking away from the rest of the field.
Did you see Boudinot in that white truck, though? As they were battling, he snuck through and got a 2-for-1 past the start-finish line. He is on a march. He wants to make up for that that error that he had. Well, not really an error. He got shoved to the side, unfortunately, at the start of his heat race, and that has put him on the back foot, but he's not taking no for an answer now.
Yeah, and Boudinot, one of these drivers, may be a little bit newer to the off-road racing circuit. And it's one thing to be fast, Joe, but there's a lot of racecraft that goes into racing these Pro 4 trucks as well. You can't just race clean and kind of hope for the best. You got to set yourself in a position to kind of somewhat absorb some of those hits that are coming from your competitors and put yourself out in a position to really run up front. And it looks like he's made that adjustment here going into the future race.
You can see Olsen on his own. He was towards the back of the field. He got tipped around into a spin. So he is eager for that caution to come as well, as we're only on lap 3, though. So there's still ways to go before we get to that. He's got to try and avoid going a lap down to help save him that headache as well. Meanwhile, my goodness, look at this mess heading into the turn. I think this is around 11th position or so where we're seeing cars just constantly slicing and dicing.
And once you find yourself in the middle of this pack here, it's very similar lap times between all these drivers, and it's really kind of hard to find a position on the racetrack right now. And if you're in this little gaggle of trucks that we see right now on the screen, it's really important not only to try to keep your lap times consistent, but try to minimize contact, because even though contact might help you make that pass every once in a while, Joe, it's going to slow you down in the long run.
Indeed, jumping a little bit farther ahead. It says Minder versus Queen and Messimer. Minder at the lead of that group. Queen tried to make a go at it, but unfortunately the slow exit cost him. Messimer taking advantage with a smooth move to get him into 8th.
And a really, really great move right there as well. And again, just another gaggle of trucks. You got one truck up and over on its roof, trying to see who that is right now. Looks like it's the 48 truck of Queen. That's going to drop him back down into about 16th position. And just like that, he was looking at a top 10. Now he finds himself out the top 15, Joe.
Yeah, luckily he did get turned over, so he's able to continue, but that really cost him as he got pushed and shoved around like he's in a tumbler. It is still Burke leading up towards the front of the field. Checking back in on Skiles here. He's that bright blue and white machine. Oh, up to his outside. There was a car almost to a halt, and he's also going to get shoved over. He manages to turn it right side up, but he has to get it turned around in the process as well.
And I think what happened there is you saw the 72 truck of Trevor Teal was throwing a slide job on another driver and just kind of ended up sliding all the way in there and flipping another truck around. I don't think that was really what Teal's intention was, but unfortunately it looks like Skiles is going to be the short end of the stick on that one, Joe.
Really was. This is Burke here on your screen in the number 7. He has looked very good so far today, taking the win in that second heat. And starting from second because of that here today, but has managed to get up to the front and is running away with things. Bolson is chasing him down, but is pretty far back. As that's Scott Kerr as well that you can see just behind, that is kind of looming on Austin's number 25 truck. Pretty close fight for 4th behind them. Looks like Cameron in the 253 has got Metoxen really hassling him.
Yeah, the 253 of Megeshik and the 84 of Kerr right now. That battle for the final podium spot is one of your best battles on the racetrack right now as we get the onboard view. And then also look inside the cockpit here. It looks like Kerr is using that VR setup. And kind of interesting the differences and strategies you see here, Joe, between the drivers that choose to use VR, and then you got some guys that will use the triple screens. And you got your good old-fashioned single screen drivers as well.
Yeah, I feel bad for the single screen guys. I know I race with that, but having tried it here on dirt, it is not easy. I think the VRs might have a little bit of an advantage on that one. And the mandatory caution is out. Mandatory caution is out, so they slow to a crawl now. They've got 2 cars that are laps down. Leighton Kramer is one of them, so he's going to get his lap back. Trevor Teal's the other, but he Is he actually out? Yes, he's out of the session, so they won't have to wait for him. We have a replay of the incident at the start with Kramer. Let's see if we can do a little bit of analysis on that. So coming into the turn, really leaning on the car next to him, and unfortunately, just drives into the side of him right at the wrong moment and absolutely sends him into the pylon for the banner, and that's what sent him on the ride the most, it seems. So, wow. Leighton just got the bad end of the stick. They're all going to take a little bit of a park here right now as Leighton is continuing on around to get that lap back, which looks like he is now back onto the lead lap. Burke will carry on, and they will be given the green, not at the finish line, but just after it, out of turn 1. Watch for that, and that's where they'll be getting going. And we'll see if anybody can make a jump on that number 7 here, because now is your best opportunity, considering the pace that he's had. They're going to need that, because I think otherwise it's going to be difficult to try and keep tabs on that car, especially if you're Austin Bolson. Scott Kerr, though, will certainly want to try and do likewise. And 7's already taken off, but the rest of the field is not going anywhere quite yet. Somebody not get the memo out there? There we go. Now we're rolling here, Ian. I thought for a second that Burke was going to be able to just complete this race by himself. Nobody was going.
Well, I mean, hey, you're out there and you ran an excellent race so far if you're that 7 truck of James Burke, and you're excited to get back out on the track, Joe. You think this is your race to win, and if you're in that driver's seat in that P1 position, especially coming to a restart after a competition caution, you don't want to wait around. You want to click these laps off as fast as you can.
Absolutely. So again, they're not going to be going here where they will finish the race. They're waiting for the call, the signal from the tower after this corner, after this left-hander. Watch for the first banner overhead. That is where they will be likely giving it. Waiting patiently. And there is the call. Green flag is out. It's a pretty decent jump for Burke, but he doesn't leave Austin behind. He's still there. In fact, just tips the wall. The 7 flirting with the outside. Thankfully keeps it from slowing him down, but man, he pulled that as tight as possible.
Yeah, the top 3 able to get away to an early lead, but from 4th on back to 5th, all the drivers, again, kind of getting bunched up through that first turn, and again, all battling with each other. You got Matox and a few other drivers in there right now. But no, they're all trying to fight for these positions on back as the leaders here try to check away for the rest of this field right now, Joe.
Certainly plenty of argy-bargy in the middle pack back there. Not many places for them to go. And what is Kramer going to be able to do now that he is back up to the back of the pack on the lead lap? 9 laps to go. So he's got some time, but he's got a lot of trucks to pass. And that is going to be amazing if he even gets into the top 5 of this race, let alone a podium or a win here. It is still Burke leading, Bolson in 2nd, Kerr is in 3rd. Looks like Cameron's 253 truck is leading a huge train behind him. It has since the restart.
Yeah, and that's really been the story of this feature race so far, is the leaders have been kind of able to check themselves out from the rest of the pack, but then from the Geschik on back to about Messimer from that 4th to 8th position, it's just a whole bunch of argy-bargy. And speaking of argy-bargy, look at this. What's going on, Joe?
That's Bryant, who's on his lid, unfortunately. It looks like Kramer just got through it, but definitely was involved. Actually, I think went underneath the tumbling car at one point. But Bryant just got pushed around, and he had to take a tow to pit lane. That might be day over for our 2nd truck of the evening. Let's take another look at the replay here, Ian.
Yeah, and you just got all these guys, got 5 trucks battling for position here. Everybody's pretty clean over the jump here, so let's see what happens.
Oh,
just a stack up. Yep, just a stack up in front of them, and really no place to go there, Joe.
Yeah, once he ran into the side of that truck, then got sandwiched between them. He was kind of helpless, just kind of tossed in the air. Meanwhile, Metoxen, who's missing some body work, is playing some severe defense. Cameron gets shoved out, but Cameron comes back across, runs into the side of Minder. Minder is going to push him, all three of them out to the wall. A little bit of car contact as well, as that looks like, I think that was not Messimer, trying to make out who it is, Budno, who got into him.
Yeah, Budno side by side now, and another truck's going to throw themselves into the mix. I think that's the 96 of Folsom there, trying to take advantage of all these trucks kind of stacked up, trying to throw a slider at all of them at the same time. Not able to really make it work, but something I've kind of noticed here up at the top of the field, you take a look at the leaderboard there, Joe. Burke's not out to as dominant of a lead on Bolison as he was earlier in this race in the first half as well. We've got quite a battle up here still.
He's keeping them honest. That's what we like to see. We want to see a race for that victory. Kerr is as well. Metoxen is dropping back, so it seems like it is a podium breakaway currently out on the circuit as they fly over the jump down towards gravel pit. Nobody really close enough to try and make an attack into that corner behind them. It is just a slew of trucks all sliding through that left-hander, and then it switches sides into the right-hander of Calamity Corner. Metoxen struggling a little bit there in the background as he was slow down at the apex.
And you got to wonder a little bit, Joe, the difference between the land rush start we had to start this race and the rolling start we had to come back to green after the competition caution. Could that have possibly played into some of these drivers' hand? Maybe they're a little bit better on those rolling starts, able to give some track position early. You see here, Burke wasn't able to get out to as big of a lead on Bolison. Now opened it up to about a second and 2/4, or a second and 2/10. But a little bit of a different dynamic here coming out of the competition caution.
A lot of back and forth as there is a cut back from Metoxen to try and retake Minder's position. This is for fourth position that they are battling for, and unfortunately not able to fully get alongside Metoxen. Minder has to back out of it so as not to turn his rival.
Yeah, and Minder really giving it all he possibly could there to the back bumper of the 19 truck of Metoxen, really not giving him a break here, trying to run him back down as they come through this high corner here, back down into the straightaway to the gravel pit. Nobody really able to make any momentum here out of this group of four, Joe. They dive back towards the gravel pit now.
4 laps to go now. Going to be 3 in just a moment, so opportunities are running thin, and seems like patience is running thin as well, because there is a lot of slide jobs attempted down into that turn. None of them appeared to be able to go off. Another little touch on the back of Metoxen as Minder is trying to see if he can loosen up the rear of that truck, but nothing doing for now. He's got to watch out. Both Cameron and Timothy behind him are giving watch and knowing that they can pounce if either of them slips.
Oh, yeah, and that's all it takes right now when all these trucks are as tight as you possibly can from Metoxen all the way down to Folsom. One mistake by any of these guys, you're going to lose at least 3 or 4 positions, Joe. So not only have to be on your A game, but you got to take advantage of any mistakes that might happen on the track in front of you.
Miller trying to throw a slide job on Folsom, but he's still stuck in Folsom prison, unable to overtake that 96. He'll have to try it again later, and he does try it again, but finds that there is no room at the end. In fact, he gets squeezed down to the concrete barrier, nearly turns himself over as we look behind from Folsom at his rival, and I think he's managed to really shut him down now.
Yeah, that move by Miller that you saw on Folsom there to the inside, that's kind of the risk that you play sometimes, is you might bounce off the truck inside of you and roll up on that wall there. And you saw that's exactly what happened to Miller in the back bumper view here of Folsom. And now look at all the speed he's losing, Joe, not able to catch up to Folsom at all.
Metoxen found himself under threat from Minder yet again. They're side by side as they fly off the jump. That's dangerous, making those bits of contact mid-air. Minder's going to get the better exit from it. Metoxen, no place to go, tries to sneak back to the inside, but goes too narrow and rolls his truck.
Yeah, and you saw Metoxen drove it so wide into Calamity Corner. I was surprised he was able to save it there, but a little bit of Icarus flying too close to the sun, got too close to the K-rail, coming back across the start-finish line. It'll probably be race over.
Absolutely. James Burke, meanwhile, on the white flag lap. as he is going to take the checkered flag here in just a moment. The number 7 has looked flawless today, other than qualifying not giving him the fastest time. This man has been untouchable. Victory for James Burke in round 1.
Really a dominant drive from the drop of the green flag here in this feature race. Joe was able to get out to an early lead, missed the whole shot, but was able to get the inside line on the next corner and never looked back.
Flying across the line, the rest of them finish up, and it looks like, unfortunately, only 15 of the 18 will get to see the checkered flag. Metoxen, Bryan, and Teal are going to wind up as DNFs here in the feature. Some disappointments for some very fast drivers. Let's go through our finishing order. James Burke, your winner, with Austin Bolson winding up second today, and Scott Kerr rounding out your podium, starting from 9th, by the way. Great run up the field for him. Minder takes the 4th spot with Megeshik in 5th. Boudinot, we mentioned that he was trying to charge his way upwards. Well, he got 10. He finished 6th after starting from that P16. Messimer was 7th after starting on the pole. I'm sure he's frustrated about that. Folsom wound up in 8th with Miller in 9th. And then rounding out the top 10 here, Ian, it is Leighton Kramer.
Yeah, and Nicholas Queen going to be your first driver in the 48 in the P11 spot. Started in the P15, so not a terrible run for him. The 531 of Braden Ward comes across in P12. Corey Skiles, P13, Sawyer Tigner, P14, and Corey Olson in the 748 is in your 15th position. Nathan Metoxen in the 19 truck comes across, starting 5, your first truck 1 lap down. Jason Bright 7 laps down. And then rounding out your field, Trevor Teal in the 72 truck, finishing 14 laps down after some early contact, Joe. Rough night for Teal.
It certainly is, but it's a great night if you are James Burke taking the win here today. And we, of course, mentioned it a little bit earlier. The only thing that he wasn't able to do perfect out here today was qualify with the fastest time. So, James, was it more of a focus on your racecraft, your race pace here today than it was the qualifying time?
For me, yes. I knew that getting into turn 1, I knew that I had to put my head down. I got really lucky with those guys wrecking behind me. I'm not sure what happened there. I got to go back and watch. But, yeah, definitely just put my head down out of turn 1.
And that paid huge dividends. Were you concerned at all about that restart? It did look like they were staying a little closer to you compared to the initial start of the feature race.
Well, I knew at the start, I looked down and I seen Bolson right after those guys wrecked. I seen Bolson, and I knew that I had to get away from him. And I knew that early on I was going to be quicker, but I knew once the track dried off, he was much faster. He's a very good driver, and huge shout out to him for keeping pace with everybody and riding around with me. I really thought he had a chance to get up there. I was trying, man, just to stay away.
Yeah, I can only imagine. But man, a fantastic job here today. It looked relatively easy from the outside. Did it feel easy from inside the cockpit?
Later on, it got really rough. I don't consider it easy at all. I mean, for the pro guys, it's probably easy, but I'm not used to it. It's definitely different out there. It's been a while since I've raced on a blue group track like this.
Well, fantastic work. Is there anybody that helped make today's win happen?
You know, a huge shout out to Noah Sanders. He was in my ear the entire time, spotting for me. Legion Speed Sports, Chris Plumley, Tom Grady, all those guys, everybody at that IRSC that, you know, helps out. Nicholas Stachelet, Connor for put it on the league. You know, it's a good time. Everybody that helps out and everybody for coming out and racing with us. It's a good time. So thanks everybody for coming out, and you guys for streaming too.
Well, that was James Burke in the number 7. Thank you for the kind words. And I believe Austin Bolson, who at least still managed to get a second place, is with Ian today.
And Austin, that 25 truck of yours was fast all night long. Unfortunately, just came up about a second short of James Burke in that 7 truck. From your point of view, how did the race go for you? And what was that little bit of speed that you needed to really challenge that 7 truck for the victory?
I think I got pretty lucky off of the start. There's a lot of carnage coming off of the flyaway jump, and I just ducked to the inside and kind of tucked in second and just stayed there for the rest of the race. I don't think I really had much for Burke. He was he was in a different zone. It was definitely a lot of fun, though.
Well, you mentioned that the initial start, especially, there's a little bit of luck involved. But when you found yourself coming to the restart after the competition caution, single file restart, rolling restart, did you have any more confidence there, or do you kind of prefer the land rush start off the beginning?
Honestly, I like the land rush a little better. But I had a nice spotter, Noah Saunders. He was spotting for me the whole time, so I kind of knew who was around me and was telling me how much space. So once I got away from the rest of the pack, I kind of just settled in and just told me to run my lines and got a second place.
Well, you finish up tonight here at Crandon in second place, and a few weeks' time we head out to the Wild West Motorsports Park, and a lot of jumps there, a lot of different elevation changes. What are your thoughts going to the Wild West, and not only there, but the rest of the season after your P2 finish tonight?
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to the rest of the season. Once we head to the West Coast, that gets a little interesting. Not too comfortable with those tracks, but that's what test sessions are for. So do a lot of practice in between there, and hopefully we can move up on the box.
Well, a lot of practice is always key to getting it done on race day, but who else do you want to thank on race day, Austin, that helps you get it done here out on the racetrack?
I like to thank my buddy Brock Smith. He helps me, and Noah Saunders, James Burke, another good friend, and Chris Plumley. All these guys that we just run weekly and just have fun doing it, and then we get to come out and put on a show for everybody. So it's pretty cool.
Well, we appreciate your time with us here, Austin, and congratulations on your P2 finish, Joe. Starting off early here with the P2 on the season. Austin's going to look to keep it going for the rest of the year.
All right, thank you, guys.
So Austin Bolson finishing second, and in third, it was Scott Kerr, who perhaps had the most impressive drive of anybody on the podium, starting from ninth position. I went back and checked to see how you managed that, and I noticed that you were in third by the end of the first lap. That's some wild stuff. How do you think that worked out for you?
Yeah, there was a bit of calamity actually heading into Calamity Corner that kind of gave me that little pass there. Had a really good start, and then again, some more calamity was happening in front of me as we were just going into the start-finish line off the start. I somehow ended up in third, and I said, okay, if I can hold this position, I'm pretty happy.
Well, that you did. It certainly seemed like you were still hassling Bolson where possible. If it were a few more laps, do you think maybe you could have done something on him, or is he just outpacing you today?
Oh, yeah, I don't know. I think after the restart, someone threw out some of the black RTV. That track just was not wanting the truck to rotate. Going into Gravel Pit and into Calamity, I think I have a really nice line. But like I said, I just couldn't get that truck rotated nicely. So that last half of the race, it was just a little bit of a battle trying to keep my position. But yeah, I got on the inside of Austin there a little bit, but he had a really nice second half of that race. So he kept his position. Congratulations to him and James.
We're getting to see the replay of that first lap here, so you can see the wonderful awareness that you had in all of the insane situations happening around you at the start of this race. Next time out, it's going to be a track with a few high-speed sections, shall we say, over at Wild West. Do you think that one should be fun for you, or are you usually not too good over there?
Well, I'm actually a big Pro 2 guy, so these Pro 4s are a little bit, I wouldn't say newer to me, but I pretty much live in a Pro 2. I do fairly well in Wild West in a Pro 2, so usually that means I'm going to do pretty poorly in the Pro 4s. I'm going to get some practice in, get that elbow grease in, and we'll just see what happens.
Oh, I like that attitude, though. But anybody that helped put in that elbow grease and make this win happen for you?
Oh, for sure. First of all, Zach Knowles and Josh Edmondson. I don't think I would be where I am right now with just the help from the two of them. Just sharing some tips and tricks, and even, all their old hardware. Some donations coming my way. Those two guys have really helped me out a lot, and everyone else in the dirt off-road racing series. Trevor Teal, my boy Gecko Lonzo. And everyone else in the JBE Legion factory, everyone on all those teams have just been so helpful to all the newer guys like me. Fish Sports, Team Gold, everyone just in the dirt off-road racing series is just such an awesome community. Everyone's just here to help each other, and if you have one bad race, it's we'll kind of pick up the pieces and keep her going.
Great stuff. That was Scott Kerr in the 84 taking the final step of the podium here today at Crandon International Raceway. And that, of course, will wrap up our broadcast of the first round of the iRacing Regional Short Course Series. Make sure and tune in later. But before that, we want to give a big thank you to our team today, Ian and Zach. The next time out that we see you at Wild West, that'll be Monday, September 12th at 6 p.m. Pacific. But until next